Hi you guys, it's Tanya, and I have been issued a challenge by Teresa Boyce to use all of my Lindy Stamp Gang products in one project. So I'm going to kind of go over what I have, and then I'm going to record a step-by-step of me making this canvas so that you can see me use every one of them. I have Mission Bells Brown, Glory of the Sea Gold, Cocoa Bean Copper, Tainted Love Teal, Gossamer Gold Moon Shadow, Cockabells Coral, Jar Chocolate Truffles, Cosmopolitan Pink, a bit of Bubbly, Idlewise Moss Green. What is this one? Frosty Forest Green, and a Ponderosa Pine Olive. So the challenge is to use them all in one project, and here we go.
So to start out with, I'm going to use an 8x10 canvas that I'm going to spray with the Idlewise Moss Green and Tainted Love Teal for the top. I'm going to continue to just add layer and layer of this until I get the color consistency that I want. I'm also working in Ponderosa Pine Olive into the green, so I have a multicolor in the green. And I'm just using my heat tool to just kind of spread it around. Then I took a paintbrush once I got the saturation on the canvas and worked it in, using my hands to add texture to the grass part too. Now to make the sunflowers, I'm going to use the Gossamer Gold and Glory of the Seas Gold to paint the sunflowers. I'm going to use a stylus and just kind of run around the edges of the sunflower to lift up the petals on the reverse side, and then I'm going to flip it over and run that bigger stylus around in the center of the daisy, and that just pops the leaves up to give them dimension. Now, to save time, I'm just going to show you how to make a few of these daisies. I'm not going to show you every one on the canvas. And I also have a tutorial on my channel where you can get a closer up and better detail of how to make the same flower. Now I'm using the Gossamer Gold to kind of give a little shadowing on the inside of the flower. You really won't see this too much, but you will see where the edge of the petal touches the center of the flower. You will see where it's the shading has been added to that. Just drying it a little bit. Now I'm going to offset the petals in the center of the flowers, and I'm going to make my centers now, just touching up a spot. So for my centers, I'm using a EK Success Punch, and I'm using the dark chocolate truffle to sprayed on some brown cardstock and I'm just drying that so that they can dry. Now to make the centers, all I do is roll those daisies around in my hand and then just make them into a cup and just nest one inside the other until they're the desired thickness. I always start out with maybe two that are kind of somewhat open on the base and then put the cup in the center. Again, this is in detail on my channel, so you can watch another video that's specifically for this flower. And I'm just using a Sharpie as my stylus and a piece of thick fun foam and a crochet hook. I mean, there's no need to go out and buy unnecessary tools for certain things. This is Cosmopolitan Pink, and it's another EK Success Punch. The flowers that I've made, the sunflowers were cut from white cardstock, and these are cut from manila cardstock. When I'm making my flowers, I always start out with either manila or white cardstock. I just use Cosmopolitan Pink just to give it a nice variation in color. And notice I'm only spraying the tops of these flowers. Now I'm going to curl them up in my hand to distress them and, just wad them up. and then I put them to the side and let them dry before I completely unwadded them. So some time lapse had occurred, and I'm just rolling that with the Sharpie, and just like I did with the sunflower. Now I'm pinching the edges of this flower to just give it a different look, and I'm going to make 3 of these petals for one flower. Alternating them again as I glue them in. Same daisy that goes in the center. Again, just cupping up the centers, putting them in, alternating them from side to side, and then making a little cup to go in the center. And I love, love, love how the brown just contrasts so nicely with that peachy pink. Now I'm going to move on to my petals for the leaves. It's the same petal as the last flower. I'm using Frosty Forest Green and Ponderosa Pines Olive. I'm just alternating those colors on these front and back so that I get a good shade on shade, shade on, or a toning effect on the flowers. I'm just using my fingers to work in that ink into the paper fibers. I noticed that if you rub it too much, the fibers of the paper kind of come up, and that does help to distress it some, but then it kind of looks a little ragged. So just be gentle with these things. And I'm making sure I'm doing a complete saturation on both sides of the petals. And I'm using the petals to mop up the overspray that's on the mat too, so I don't really lose too much of my Lindy's this way. Just drying them really carefully, and then I'm going to put them to the side and pull them out later. Now I'm going to use my the bird from Martha Stewart, and I'm going to use the sepia ink and stamp it on a piece of white cardstock. This is the Georgia Pacific cardstock you get at Walmart. And then I'm going to take my Tainted Love teal, and I'm going to paint the top of the bird with the Tainted Love. I'm not being super careful with the painting technique here because I'm going to fussy cut this bird out. I just want to get the color right on the bird. And just drying that really good. If you start to distress at this point with it wet, it will rag out the paper. So I want it good and dry before I add the ink. I'm going to use brush corduroy and walnut ink to just kind of give some shading to the bird. And then I went right back over with the same brush just to put some of that blue color back in. Now I'm going to grab my markers and just do his beak and his feet in a yellow color. And then I'm going to get a brown and, or that was the black to do his eye. And then I'm going to come in and fussy cut him out. I don't own any Copics, so if you had Copics, I would suggest doing it that way. Again, I'm trying to use up my Lindy stamp gang for this project. And just make sure he's good and dry before we mess with him. So I'm just taking my brown marker and just kind of coloring in his breast a little bit more, adding some shadowing effects. Again, if you have your Copics, it would probably be easier to do that with them. And then I'm going to add the shadows back on the feathers with the blue. Now I'm going to lift up my mat and I'm going to fussy cut out between his legs there with a X-Acto knife. I really think if you're going to take the time to fussy cut something, then you should at least take the time to clean up the negative spots as well. It's very tacky to leave them there. And I'm going to go back and use my stylus and run it around the edges of him, and this is going to give him a little bit of dimension and pop and make him look a little more rounded and not so flat. Now for my bird cage, I am going to take my cocoa bean copper and just dabble it on in splots. And the more I add, the darker the saturation, but again, I'm being splotchy with it. And then I'm going to heat set that and come back with the moon shadow mist, which is gossamer gold, and I'm just going to spritz that in some of the areas, getting it good and dry. And this is going to give it, when you use multicolors like this, it really adds shadows with paint. Then I'm going to come back with the walnut stain and just hit the shadowed areas of the birdcage. Now I'm going to take my crackle medium and the tarnished brass, and I'm just going to add it in certain spots, not the whole thing. And the secret to this, guys, is leave it alone once you put it on. It needs to go on a medium to thick coat and just put it to the side. Don't try to heat set it to rush it, because it will not crackle if you heat set it. Just put it away. Now I'm going to clean up my mess. That sat there for close to an hour before I touched it again. Now I've got my book page out, and I'm going to take my brushed corduroy and just run over the top of it to just give it a little coloring. And then I'm going to come back with my walnut stain and just do the edges so that I've got, just a little definition towards the edge. I'm also going to flip this over and just do around the edges of this in case I decide I want to tear the paper or roll it or anything. I've got a little color on the back side. Now I'm going to add it to my photo mat. This is a 4x6 photo mat. And I'm going to put a little bit of glue across the bottom and add that ribbon that was on my desk. That was just a little piece of remnant. And I am going to just trim it up on the edges just to clean it up a bit. And now I'm going to take some iridescent clear pearls and run them across the bottom of, or the top part of that ribbon, and that's just going to kind of finish it off a little bit, give it a nice finished look. Now to assemble the canvas. I'm going to use my Claudine Helmuth matte medium to adhere the book page, and when I put this on, I'm using my fingers. I want it to be a good full saturation of it, but my fingers just tend to smooth it out a little better than a paintbrush. And I'm covering it completely on the top again with my fingers so I don't have brush strokes, and I'm squishing it up. I want it to look like it's like flying in the wind, like a piece of paper that's just kind of flying around. And so it's got a lot of bumps and dips in it. Now I'm taking a brad foam, and I'm putting the Claudine Helmuth on it as well as hot glue to hold it in place. That is going to be the dimensional thing for my photo mats. And it lifts that photo mat up so that it is not at the same level as everything else. Now I'm just dressing over my leaves. And just wrinkling them up. And anyway, so I'm adding the flower arrangements around, and I'm going to take those little leaves and work them in around those flowers to kind of give that viney, leafy feel to them. Flowers should not be displayed without leaves, I feel like. Now what I'm trying to do is kind of hide the perimeter of that frame a little bit so that you don't see those big foam pieces underneath. I don't like caged birds, so my bird's going to sit outside of its cage, and I am going to glue him to the flowers. And then as I started messing with it, I noticed that the bird cage was getting a little bit too large as well. So I'm tucking in some more leaves there. I'm going to take the bird cage and cut just a little bit off the sides of it. I'm going to cut one piece of each side off and then cut the bottom off. And then I also added a little charm to the top piece and some chain to make it look like it's hanging there. Now I'm taking walnut stain and I'm adding it with my fingers to the crackled areas, just to kind of bring up those cracks a little bit and give them a little more definition. Now my final Lindy's product is the bit of bubbly. I'm just going to hit the high points of all my flowers, and then I'm going to use it to color my lace at the bottom so that it tones it down. It was very white, and the bit of bubbly has a yellowish tone to it. Thank you guys for watching. Here's a close-up of my bird and the bird cage. And then on the music paper, the title of it is Softly Now the Light of Day, which I thought was perfect for this canvas. And the first stanza says, Softly now the light of day fades upon our sight away. Freedom, care from labor free. Lord, we would commune with thee. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Teresa, for the challenge. I hope you guys have enjoyed this production, and please leave me comments.